So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about solving the first-person shooter in VR. Really excited to have this group of panelists up here. Kind of no surprise that we have a number of fantastic companies working on first-person shooters in VR, given that it's one of the most popular genres in gaming. So I don't want to take any time away from them, so we'll kind of get started pretty quickly. I'll introduce them. We have Nick Donaldson from Epic. We have John Gibson from Tripwire, Joe Hamell from High Voltage, and Andriy Kosavin, did I do that right? Okay, pretty good, from 4A Games. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Nick, on Robo Recall. Can we drop that down just a little bit more? Thank you. So Bullet Train was one of the very first experiences that people had with touch, doing a first-person shooter in VR, and now we've come so far. Can you kind of give us some of the background of how you developed that, what you learned from doing a shooter originally?
Yeah, so I guess my very first Bullet Train came from, it was a prototype, and I literally just put some cubes together and to make guns out of them. And I had a little street scene that I put together, and then I had, like, in Unreal, brain-dead default Unreal mannequins running towards you. And I wanted to make it as physical as possible. You shoot them and they would just ragdoll dead, just bang. And it was super simple, but people would get in there, and I made like a cube pistol and a cube assault rifle, and people just two-handing these things going, just the smiles, the massive grins. And it was like, all right, we've got to make something out of this. So we started off making a Bullet Train for that. And then for progressing to this, it was basically, if Bullet Train, or sitting at like a 7 or something, if we just keep turning the dial up to the amount of ridiculous shit you could possibly do, up to 10, what about 11 or 12, and we just kind of, it's a what-if design mentality. What if I could grab a robot? Well, what are you going to do after you grab him? Well, you obviously want to tear his arm off and then beat his head in with it. That's obviously what you're going to do with a robot.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, that's pretty much the mentality behind the whole thing.
Very cool. And Joe, Damage Core has been out for a little while, earned some fantastic praise, very well deserved. So as one of the very first shooters that has been out in VR, tell us a little about your experience developing it, where the idea came from, kind of the thought behind it.
Okay, well the idea was we wanted to make a sniper game for VR. And we're like, okay, we've done a lot of first-person shooters before, we know what we're doing. So we get in there and we tried to get the sniper mechanic going. So we got the reticle out in space, and we zoom in. We zoom in the entire screen, and you're trying to like kind of hold your head, and you're figuring out. You're like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought it was to actually snipe somebody, because it's all the motion of your neck. So the whole time you're like straining to fire on the guy, and we realized that that it wasn't going to work. There's no way we can do this. So we're like, oh man, how are we gonna handle this? How are we going to find a way that makes it comfortable? Because comfortable is one of the big pillars. I mean, I'm sure all of us got that thing where they're like, it's got to be comfortable. Whatever you do, it's got to be comfortable. And so we're like, okay, well, we can't move, we can't do anything like that. So for the scope, we're like, okay, what can we do with that? And we had the idea that if we actually change the what am I trying to say here? Made it so that your head movement wouldn't be 1-to-1. Because if it's 1-to-1, and trying to hold a scope, it's really hard. So we tried to make it different than that. We made it 3-to-1. And when we did that, it allowed you to get a better precision. Like you could move your head. If you moved it, instead of moving it like 1 inch for 1 inch, you'd move it like 3 inches and only move 1 inch. It felt really good. And the only way we could do that was we had to actually separate the screen. So we ended up rendering another window where the actual scope was. And with that window, it allowed us to have that little window at 3-to-1 and the outer at 1-to-1. Because we realized that you needed to have something. We tried stuff where it's a scope, and it's just a circle. And the rest of it was black, and it didn't feel right. And we found out you needed like a grounding element. And that's what the outer part was. And it was just this, it was just a render of the scene. But it was in a way where you just needed something some comfort. It was we call it grounding. So we needed something there to kind of make you feel okay. So when you go into scope, you can move your head at this other rate, but yet it still felt like you're at like a 1-to-1 rate.
Yeah, I remember some of those earliest demos, trying to keep your head still when you were zoomed in. And I mean, that reticle would move with every little twitch of your head. So
yeah, it was really uncomfortable.
Right.
And for a while, we were really kind of like, oh, what are we going to do about this? And when we came up with the 3-to-1, it just clicked, and it just felt great.
Yeah, and John, Killing Floor is unique in that it's Cooperative. I mean,
Yeah.
that adds a whole nother layer to a shooter. Can you tell us about developing that? What you've learned, especially about doing a co-op shooter in VR?
Yeah, sure. So when we started making an Incursion, Killing Floor has always been a co-op game. So we said, well, we want to do that in VR. We want to be able to be in this creepy space, but we want to be able to do it with a friend. And it's so exciting. You get this sense of camaraderie when you play co-op in VR with somebody that you don't get from a standard shooter. Like when you're done, you feel like you're war buddies or something. But some of the challenges that we faced with co-op were, we also have a teleport movement mechanic, and when your buddy was around you and they teleport, they just disappear, and you're like, where did they go? You're used to playing co-op, and you see them walk away, or even if they're behind you, you hear their footsteps, and you kind of get the sense of where they're at, and you had none of that spatial awareness in VR. So we had to do things like put in particle effects, so when they teleport away, hey, they went in this direction, and if they were behind you and you couldn't see them, like there's a sound that they play when they teleport away, and a sound they play when they arrive somewhere. Like, okay, I know that they got over there. So that was one of the interesting initial challenges that we faced with co-op. Some of the other things that you run into are just, obviously you need to hear each other. So and you want positional VoIP, because positional voice over IP, you really feel like, if you just hear their voice in your head, it doesn't feel as real, because they're standing, you see them right next to you. So hearing them spatially from where they're at is really important. And then obviously there's that big problem of how to represent their avatar. Because getting IK right, getting, if you don't know what IK is, it's a type of animation that bases the movement off of, kind of like a reverse of where the thing is at. So the terrible explanation, I'm sure an animator could, or a content person could explain it a lot better than I do. But it's difficult to make avatars look right, basically reverse animating off of where your hands are in the real world or where your head is. So that was kind of challenging. But once we got it in, it was so much fun, because guys start, the first thing they want to do is dance. Like we put a mirror in a level, and people are just sitting there dancing, giving themselves thumbs up, and then doing that same thing when they play together. So that's fun stuff.
Yeah, it was amazing the first time I played Cooperative with one of my friends. Expecting them to have my back and take care of the zombies behind me, and then realizing 2 seconds later they weren't there. I was like, come on, where'd you go? So it's a very cool experience. So, and Andre, you're coming from very traditional shooter in the Metro series. What have you learned kind of bringing that experience over into VR?
For the first of all, we just, as you told, we were doing this Metro series for whole our life. Our guys that were at GSC were doing Stalker series, so, and we were just stuck. We just like, oh, you can't move. The hands are just like totally free. The player can only like look around. But after that, like all the pros and cons just go away. We get only pros, because with the teleporting, with the natural interaction, we got so much fun of just like natural input. Because with the touch controllers, when you got hands, you can do whatever you want. You can just like, if you need to press a button, you just don't press like use button. You just raise your finger and touch the button. The same with the guns. It was just amazing. And from the movement perspective, the first time it was like pretty much hard, because in the Metro you can, like in regular shooter, you can just walk away, and we like was feeling limited at some point. But then we realized our like movement system with the teleportation, and everything just went like smooth, much more smoother.
That's great. And so for kind of all of you guys, as you're making a traditional first-person shooter, a lot of people talk about the through-the-gun experience and what that's like in terms of how much camera shake do you get, how much recoil on the guns, what's reloading like. How is that different working in VR, doing a through-the-gun when it's right there and visceral for you?
For us, it was just like we already, when we started to work with guns, we instantly added like this a little bit of smoothing for the hands, just to reduce the jitter, and it was like all great. For the head, it was like natural, because you can't add that smooth. So basically the weapons were influenced by the touch controllers at some point, because the curve of the controller, of the handle of the grip, and the trigger, it feels like a gun. It feels like a gun. So we just stopped on the decisions that we will make every gun like a pistol. We get rid of the big guns because, you know, controllers are pretty much light. They're light, and for us, it's like our own decision, our own experience. The pistols were feeling much more natural. Yeah. That's it. And then we started to like, okay, how to make gun like cooler, how to make gun bigger, and we started to make an attachments. And with the attachments, we just realized the full potentials of the pistols. We just we were trying to make them much more different than just a regular pistol. And in my opinion, we succeed pretty well.
For ours, it was it was a little different. We were like, when we started working on this, touch wasn't, they didn't even talk about touch. We had no idea. In fact, we were looking at working on the keyboard. We didn't even know about the Xbox One controller. So it was a little different from that. The through the gun that we had, we have actually like, I mean, for you guys, you got like the hands. They're kind of like the on their own. For ours, we have the whole body with the arms, a little more traditional, kind of like what you'd see, you know, through the first-person perspective of a regular first-person shooter game. And so we kept that. We really wanted to have that. We attached the torso to the player. We felt that, again, we kept on going back to these grounding elements. We felt if we had something to ground you, you'd feel more comfortable within it, and it was a little more like a traditional shooter. So for us, we could do all sorts of animation. I mean, we obviously, if you had the kick of the rifle, it feels really good. I mean, it's just gonna move the body back or move the arms back. I mean, we pretty much, as long as you locked the torso in, you could do whatever you wanted with the arms. And the arms are always aimed at whatever your reticle was, which is another thing that we had that you guys don't have anything like that, which is, I mean, I wish we didn't have a reticle because it was really hard to work with. I mean, it was that whole thing where, you know, you have this thing in space, and you guys, maybe you're dealing with the UI, I'm guessing, if you even have, if you might, but it's something we had to deal with where, say you'd have a point on a character and you'd aim at the character, you'd have to have the reticle on the level that the character was at, or else it would feel uncomfortable. Like in the beginning, we kind of had it out there in space. I think it was like, I don't know, 4 feet away from you. And it felt pretty good, but then when you'd like aim at a guy that was far away, it doesn't feel right because your eyes would focus in on the guy behind you, behind that reticle. And that was a big issue that we dealt with, and I think we came up with a good solution. I mean, basically, we're moving on the plane. I mean, there's still some fringe elements where you kind of like we don't know where you're really looking. We have some idea that you're probably looking at the reticle, but you could be looking at something else. But from that, it definitely lets you get that kind of precision. I felt really worked well with our sniper game.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, Tripwire, we're kind of known as the gun studio. I mean, we're all about making guns feel really good in every game that we do. And we were really excited about the challenge of bringing that to VR. And some of the things that we saw right away, a lot of the things that you do to make a gun feel good in a standard first-person shooter, like he mentioned, you know, camera shake is one of them. You know, when you shoot, you really want it to bounce around and make the gun feel powerful. But if you do that too much in VR, I mean, nausea ensues.
Do you guys do camera shake for guns?
We do just a little bit of camera shake.
We had just a little bit, and then we got a bug from Oculus QA.
Yeah.
And what was the bug?
You've got camera shake.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we learned is there, you know, with camera shake, there is, you know, basically there are directions that you can go that will make you sick, and there are directions you can go just a little bit that won't make you sick.
We did a tiny kickback, like a
Yeah.
quick like pitch up.
Yeah.
And literally, it was in there for all of Bullet Train. It was in there all the way up until literally 4 days ago. Yeah. Yeah, I was shitting the bed. But literally no one noticed. Brendan never noticed. Atman Binstock never noticed. None of those, you know, anally retentive VR purists noticed at all. Yeah,
awesome.
You could tell
Yeah.
them I said that.
Yeah. We'll say very sensitive to discomfort.
Yeah, but some people, and then eventually, like I said, people started noticing it. I don't know why. Nothing changed.
Yeah, you don't think that maybe something about the visuals, the different setting that you guys have, you don't think that had anything to do with it?
It may have, absolutely.
Curious. I mean, this is one of the things we discover kind of as we're developing is, for some reason, people started to notice in real life, which was surprising. So.
And so I made a point to literally, I didn't tell anyone because I knew that people would just, I knew Oculus
Has anyone noticed?
Well, the bug came in because people noticed.
I'm sorry, that you pulled it out. Has anyone said anything to you?
I mean, no one.
You pulled it out?
Yeah, I did pull it out.
Tell those guys it's awesome that you're not going to pull it out. So we noticed it because actually in our studio we were checking out Bullet Train and we're like, they added camera shake. We're like, if they can do it, we can do it.
Right.
But we experimented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we experimented with a lot of the settings, and basically, what we
Now
found
that I
is,
know.
Look who's gonna shut it down. Yeah.
You're right.
is pitch is bad. Pitch makes some people sick. And yaw is real bad. Don't
Yeah.
do that. But a little bit, just a tiny bit of roll,
Roll.
at a. But here's some
We'll sneak it in.
of
We'll sneak it
here's
in.
some of the tricks. It has to be really fast.
Yeah.
Like if it rolls slowly, it makes people sick. But if it's a real high frequency roll, doesn't bother people too much. And then just straight back, straight along the x-axis. Just
This is
back.
actually really interesting. I also wonder if it's because it's the different style of gameplay. Yours is very purposeful. It's not a lot of rapid shooting. Whereas in Robo Recall, you guys are
laying it down.
you're arcadey, and maybe even more so than in Bullet Train, where I think a lot of people focus on grabbing the bullets and throwing it back and stuff like that. So I wonder if people are starting to notice. That being said, we can definitely talk about that.
Oh,
If you guys feel strongly about it, we can certainly add it back in.
No, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, but another thing that we saw with weapons is, in a regular first-person shooter, there's a lot of things that you can animate that they're just happening on a screen. So if you don't interrupt, if you can't interrupt them, whatever, if they just continue, you don't really notice. But doing guns in VR with touch controllers, especially, if the gun does something that you can't interrupt or really doesn't match what your hand is doing, it instantly feels wrong. People's brains say, this is not right. So a lot of what we've done, especially for shooting, is develop procedural animation systems that, like for kickback and things, that can be interrupted procedurally, dialed up and down. And we still have a little bit of animation to get kind of that human kind of wobbly feel when you shoot, but a lot of our shooting is just procedural. And then we can. The great thing about that too is you can kind of dial the kickback up, the various recoil properties in real time without having to go back into an animator.
Ours is 100% procedural. We have no animation on the guns. So the slide goes back on a timeline. All of the kickback has it'll pick like a slight random yaw and pitch and all that kind of stuff. And the recoil's actually, it always shoots 100% down the barrel. But the recoil's introduced through, it just takes we kick it back and then we let interpolation bring it back to the default position.
That is exactly what we do.
Yeah.
We totally came up with that.
Yeah.
Completely individually of each other.
Yeah.
Great minds think alike.
How are you guys doing it?
We're doing it pretty much the same. The most important part in our gun shooting, so the recoil, it's doing something like this, a little bit, just a little bit goes onto you, and we multiplying this effect with the particles, because we have pretty much intense particles from the shot, like muzzles and flashes and etc. etc. Yeah, on some guns we have procedural animation as well. So the guns, as we making a sci-fi game in the sci-fi setting, we can afford ourselves some futuristic animation and stuff. Yeah, but basically it's all about the recoil, combination of a little bit of recoil, the visual effect, and the sound as well. Because as much the silent gun is not interesting in VR. You need to be bam, bam, something like that. Yeah.
So another thing that's really challenging, I'm not sure if any of you guys are trying, I know you guys have a little bit of this on Bullet Train, is solving the two-handed weapon problem, the big weapons.
Yep.
That's something that, I hope I didn't give anything away because we haven't talked about those weapons in our new game yet. Those are some unannounced weapons, but two-handed weapons is an interesting problem to solve. How do you do recoil, when you're shooting? Because the person's hand's not going to go up when they're firing an AK or something. So really figuring out how to solve that. And what we're, I wouldn't say we've 100% solved it, but a lot of things that we're trying is just having the gun come up, leave your hand and then come back when it stops. Not getting too crazy, because once again, if it gets too far off of where your hands are in the real world, you get that disconnect and it doesn't feel good.
How did you guys handle that in Robo Recall going from Bullet Train?
Yeah, so we found, the least successful things were the two-handed gun interactions in Bullet Train. We had the pump action shotgun, which there's some awesome things that we need to bring back, because you'd grab it with your second hand, and it was actually a physics kind of pump, and so you could actually hold it like this and just go bang, bang. But we found that it really depends how much of a gun nerd you were. If you watched a lot of action movies or whatever, you would just be like bang, bang, but a lot of people were just like, why isn't it shooting after the first shot? They would sit there and just they're not dying. Why aren't they dying? And so we just had to make it so you pull the second trigger and it just automatically reloads, and people got really lazy with it. So we kind of pulled back a lot of the, and the fact that your hands, there's no rigidity between them. We pulled back on all of the kind of forced two-handed interaction things. And I think we're going to make them kind of optional extras. We're looking at doing we have this triple barrel shotgun. We'll be able to just and just shoot out one ultimate mega cannonball that just blasts people's arms off or something like that. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. And Joe, you guys have gotten a ton of praise for your teleport mechanic. I know everyone's worked with Locomotion in various ways, but you guys even worked it into the fiction of the game. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, we realized early that originally we'd have like sniper nests. You go from point to point, a teleportation where you pick where you want to go, and then our lead designer came in and he was like, you know what we should try is actually teleporting into these different bots. And we're like, oh, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, that would work. And then we were like, oh, with that we could, we give different weapons. And then hey, I want to be that guy, I want that weapon. And they're like, oh, that'd be awesome. And we have all these different weapons. And we're like, well, what about like a tank? And like, oh yeah, I want to be a tank too. And we already had the whole idea that it was all just robots. So it worked out really well. So we could go from the little tank grenadier guy, we go all the way to the big sentry. So we did a lot of really cool stuff where we could, you get the feeling that you were in these different bots. You'd have your height you could change. Your weapons were obviously different, and we could do all sorts of different effects from that. And thematically, it worked really well because in our game you're a virus, so it made sense. Hey, you're a virus. You go between the guys, and that was one of the big things. Was because the big thing came down was, well, how come you can't move? And first, we're oh, well, crap. I mean that we got to come up with an idea for that. And so they're like, okay, well, how about the virus is already killing you, and taking you down, and it takes down your movement first? And I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, So that's what we went with. It really fit the whole theme of the game, and it also allows for when we transfer into the different bots. It really, because it was part of the theme. We could have all the effects and everything. It really made sense. We didn't have to. There's a lot of times when you do gamey things, and it's like, that's a gamey thing, You can see that's it's gamey, but it was really cool how it allowed us to have that kind of theme, that kind of feel that you are this virus and that you're going through. And then we also used it as a mechanic to make sure you didn't just sit there the whole time. You jump into a guy and you can just mow down everybody because you had the super weapon guy. Because we made it so it would basically be killing you. So we'd have this death that would come in and kind of creep in on you. And that kind of told you, I was like, well, I got to get this guy. I'm totally killing him. So that worked really well for us.
Yeah, for us, the way we work, at least, it's nice to not have to take ourselves too seriously because we're like, shh, now there is only sleep. That's why you're teleporting. Shh. Yeah. We just kind of gloss over the entire thing. We don't have to deal with any of that. But you guys did it really artfully. You've got really good motivations for moving and all that stuff. It was we studied your game quite.
That's great to hear.
Quite thoroughly. Yeah.
It's nice to be the first one.
Yeah. What about you other guys? I mean, Locomotion is incredibly important. You guys have a lot more movement in the game.
Yeah, apparently
we were just
came
talking
up to
earlier.
almost exactly the same conclusion at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the whole arc thing, Well, I mean, we get a lot of people try to tell us that, oh, you guys made teleporting you introduced it to people, and then well, like you were saying, it's nice to be the first. We watched a YouTube video of some guy who was doing teleporting, and we're like, well, let's do that.
Yeah, we had.
And we get the credit. It's like, wow, this is great. I mean, sure.
It's because we had a character at the end. We're like, we had this one guy who's the overseer, and he cloaks and he can teleport, and he can teleport in a way where you pick a place where you want to go. And we always wanted that. We're like, we got to get in this game before it gets out there. We can't. We came up with this idea. We had to put it out there. So that was kind of cool to see that. But it's one of those things where. To see what you guys are doing with it and talking about, and I didn't actually play it yet, but hearing how you're actually controlling your orientation when you come out of the jump, I mean, that's kind of stuff we talked about. We're like, oh, how we could do that with it, like the second thumbstick, or maybe in the future with a touch, we could rotate your hand to do your orientation.
Yeah, that was actually the very first thing I did was rotating your hand. It was.
But we didn't have the touch, unfortunately.
It was actually the very first prototype I did before we did the stick, and it actually felt really natural, unless you got into some kind of you wanted to go that way and then back, so you'd be like, it's locking this thing. You'd be doing core exercises or something. It was a bit weird.
Yeah. And Andre, you guys handle it a little bit differently. You have very fixed points, but it works really well in the narrative. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we tried a lot of like options for the teleporting, but once we got just like we made a gray box level with the covers, and one of our guys from our team, he was playtesting it, and we saw how he just like he crouches, he leans, he just at one point he just like dropped down to the ground and just was shooting like this. We're just like, oh, that's the point. Then we started to progress in that way, and we were trying to make like a little bit transparent covers, like we call them, like a cover with a hole, and etc., etc. And the immersion when you're doing all of that physical stuff, it's so huge that we were just like thinking, oh, if you have a hole, and why don't you just put a gun through the? You can put a gun through the wall. Why don't you? But people are doing it so precisely, like they're putting it like this, like this. They're trying to feel it. They're trying to believe in it. They don't think about it. They just believe in it. Yeah. And we just decided, okay, we will stick to the cover system. The most positive thing about the cover system is that we are not spending like a brain cycle of player. Oh, where should I go now? He just moves to the room, and he instantly, oh, I have this point, this point, this point, and if I kill that guy, maybe the point will appear. Bam. And he's doing all like this. And we were trying, other challenge was like, how do you teleport? Because we were trying to like make it like a remote style. You're just doing like this. But with our gameplay style, we have like a gun in each hand, and we just like, you're getting distracted from the gunplay. So we just decided, okay, you're pointing with your head, and then you're pressing any of the face buttons, like X, Y, A, B, it doesn't matter. You can use whatever you press. Yeah, so, and it worked fine for us. Yeah.
That's great. And now all of you guys have had to deal with kind of user communication in some fashion. In traditional shooters in 2D, there's a lot of information you can put on the screen in UI and HUDs and stuff like that. You don't really have a lot of that in VR. How have you guys handled communicating to the user health, shield, ammo, and stuff like that? We'll start with you, John.
Okay, yeah, so that's really interesting, because you're right. You want to give them the information, and we at first we had these big billboards coming off the hands, and it's like, so when you went to aim a gun, you'd have all this text in your face, and it was kind of awful. So in our game, you see your hands up to about here, and we said, well, let's put information on the back of basically where their hand is kind of cut off. We've got their health there, we've got their ammo right there, and that's really useful. And then in our game, we have to give you kind of some of the story interaction, and what we have a robot companion called Node that appears at certain times. You can also bring out at certain times. It comes out and it talks to you, and it will go into the environment and show you places to go, rather than just kind of doing the typical stuff of here's an icon in the distance. So that's kind of how we're handling that. But honestly, where we're at in development, we haven't solved all of the UI issues, so we're still figuring out some of that.
Yeah, we had a pretty similar issue. Well, we tried to go arcadey, right, where you want to see your score, you want to see your health, whatever. We stole the health thing straight from you guys. I mean,
thanks.
That's
great.
Yeah, I mean, the enclosing, right? It's got that kind of doom, and you're like, oh shit, things are going bad, and so it's mine.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Learned from.
Yeah, no, we're all learning from each other, right?
Right.
Yeah. No questions.
Yeah.
Oh, so for our HUD, basically we went through a whole iteration. The first demo we had, like the actual numbers of bullets up there, and as we got to it, we're like, do we really need to have all these, all these like floating icons, or not icons, but floating like countdowns and all that kind of stuff. So what we did is, because we have the bots, and we wanted to really give the player the feel that they're transforming into these different robots. Not only do we have the body that would change, but we also had like a HUD, and we have a really talented UI artist who went in and did all of these 3D HUDs for us. And if you look at them, there's like it's subtle enough, but you tell it's happening, where it has countdowns of bullets ticking off, or whatever weapon you're using, you can see it kind of come off of there. And you have unlimited ammo, because really you're only in there for a brief period of time before the death that everyone's using now it takes you away. So.
Yeah, and so the other part we had as well is all of the score-based stuff and all of that kind of stuff. And so when you kill someone, it has the score thing that pops overhead. And that was the one thing that worked really successfully for us without really needing to rethink it, other than style. But score, like persistent score, has been a constant fucking struggle. Constant struggle. It's so hard. Where we're settling right now is you get like a score over the head, and then it tells you the times multiplier in the world, and then like all the orb things go, and then they like pop, 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 pop up in front of you like this. So you have this kind of, when you get score, it adds to it here, and then it fades away. So we're breaking some of the rules that we thought we had made right at the start. For example, we thought never stick something to your face. Never have something that's like in camera space. But now with like, for example, when your pistols are kind of being teleported into you, we stick a pistol there and and then it goes away. And so we found that when things are not persistent, when they're temporary on screen, it's as long as it's not blocking the middle of your face, it seems to be okay to leave some of those things on screen for a bit. And then when they're no longer relevant or the state has changed and you're good to go, just get rid of it.
Yeah, we had that too, where it was, we were like, never attach anything to the players, like the camera, because everything is attached for us. We don't have the, we're not separate, obviously, because we don't touch. And then we found that it just, it felt good. It felt okay to have it there, and it helped reinforce the narrative of what was going on with the guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from our point, it was like, as I told you, the Metro series was like famous for its like clean screen. We never had like lots of UI. We always had like a totally immersive experience when you as a player. So you as the actor, something like that. You as a hero of this game. So we were trying to make it as much realistic as possible. But the sci-fi setting like opens a little bit window for us. Like we can have some
holograms and stuff like that.
Yeah. We can have some of UI. So we decided just like yours, a decision to have like in the end of the glow we have a little holographic projector, and it helps us with a bullet counter, with like a reminder how to reload the guns, because we have like some of the guns reloading like this. You're just moving your gun to your hip, but some of the guns like a revolver, we have a electromagnetic shotgun revolver. Yeah, so and you need to break it, and it's hard to understand it from the scratch, like for the player. So we just added little animations that showing you if your gun is empty, it just pops up, boom, and you're just like, oh, that's how. Yeah, and for the like rest UI in the world, we just not using it. For the demo, we went for the like starting missions. We added like some tutorial things, but the rest of it, you just when you getting close to the game, we just trying to make everything as much realistic as possible. So it's if you see in like I don't know the lever, you just instantly, oh, I need to pull it. If you see in the door, oh, I need to open it, and etc. etc. Yeah, so that was our point.
Very cool. And now, those of you working on touch games, one of the big decisions you have to make is how much interactivity do you want to have with the world? I mean, Nick, you guys allow people to actually grab your enemies, pretty much all of them, and interact with them in some way. How'd you make that decision? How'd you decide kind of where the line was?
Yeah, well, when it came to interacting with enemies, it was, well, we wanted some kind of form of melee. Like in the very first prototypes I had, all the enemies had like nightsticks on their belts, and so you could like come up to them, take it off their belt, and then like whip their legs out. The problem was, as they were running by, you would grab it, and you'd turn around, and you'd lose hand tracking.
Yeah.
You're working on it. It's good. It's good.
You know we are.
Yeah. And so, this it just kind of brought forward, it's a pretty natural limitation of VR in general, where most melee things, you move your whole body through into those things. You take multiple steps forward to move yourself into the space, and that's just not really a valid option. You're going to knock over your computer screen, you're going to punch the cat or something. But what does work really well is the grabbing, and so we made these long distance kind of force pull type things like that. And we're like, well, if you're going to grab guns and that works really well, why not just let you grab all of the robots too? And so we have convenient handles on all of our enemies. And so you can pull things to you, and then when you pull them, then throwing feels great too. And so you can pull, and then you can throw, and then, that was just kind of the approach that we found worked really well, rather than having to move yourself into the space and then kind of push your body onto their body, which just ends up very awkward, like many things in life.
Yeah. And John, you guys did a lot of that decision making as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that that we did is we have melee knives in our game. So there's a lot of interaction with that. There's a lot of, but you also have holsters on you. So grabbing, you see your holster, you can grab your gun and pull it out. You have knives behind your back that you can reach back and grab. But the melee stuff was super fun because somebody give somebody a knife and they're happy. Like knife and monsters just to slash. So that the basic actually doing it wasn't too hard. But one of the things that was really challenging is you really needed in VR. You really needed to feel like you were contacting the monster. Some of that was audio, but a lot of it was just getting the animation right. The moment that hand touches the monster, it has to recoil. It has to move. Otherwise, you get that disconnect. But now we have like a slow-mo element in our game. So when you kill a monster, sometimes it'll go into slow-mo. So we have knives that you can throw and stick into the monster. So the coolest kills are the ones where you throw a knife into a monster nearby, stick it in its head, game goes into slow motion. You grab the knife, pull it out of his head, throw it at the next monster, stick it in that monster. That stuff's super fun. The other aspect about the interaction with touch and in VR in general that I'm not sure if you guys have encountered this, but we found that there were a lot of things that initially when we started doing VR, and you get those touch controls, you're like, we're going to have everybody do everything. They're going to put single bullets in every gun. They're going to lean over and they're going to pick everything up off the ground. And what you find out is you're giving people like fatigue. They play your game for 10 minutes and they're tired. So you really have to balance out. Doing things with your hands in VR is very immersive. But you have to make sure that it's worth it. Throwing a knife at a monster, yeah, that's cool. Having people get down on their knees and pick up ammo, not so much. If they do that 20 times, their knees hurt, they're tired, they're like, okay, I'm done, I'm taking this off. So you really have to balance out just how physical you make players be while they're playing your game.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you because we had the same problem when, for example, when the gun just falls from your hand and everybody's just trying to lean and just grab it. And so we decided, okay, no need. If something falls, it will respawn on the place where it was at the start point. For the guns, we have it right back in the holsters because, we don't have multiple guns or whatever. You just chosen two guns that you will be proceeding on the level, and if you drop them, they will respawn here as soon as you do this gesture, something like this. And for the whole interactions, yeah, that's pretty much grabbing stuff and just like pushing it and etc. etc. At some point, we just were afraid of melee combat because it's like when you're pushing something, you're not feeling like so much feedback. But then we realized, okay, at some point we had like monsters that just like so close to you, and people like intentionally accidentally trying to punch them, and we're just like, okay, if you want to punch them, you can punch them because it's all for fun,
Yeah. So speaking of back holsters, you guys are both doing it. We found out just at the show that people tend to be very, they have a very specific expectation of how you pull something from a back holster. We have the lazy dev thing where you just grab beside your head like this, and it turns out about 60% of people go like this. Oh, there it is. Oh, nothing. They tried the same thing all over again. And so it was actually totally missing our grab zone for the thing. Did you have similar kind of, did you find?
I know you guys did because we worked on this quite a bit.
Yeah. So basically we had this problem, because people was just trying to reach it so deep, and we just like, no. If we made this zone as much comfortable as you wish, because you just need to do like this or like this or even like this, everything for the comfort. For the first time, we just trying to move the holsters for your hips, but then we suddenly like stuck into the one thing. Everybody has like different body shape, and if you're placing it here, someone just it's my tummy there. I can't reach them. Yeah, so it's for us it was like the greatest decision because this place is closest to the HMD. You know where the player's head always. You know where's his hand. So yeah, something like that.
I want to let the audience ask any questions. So if you have any questions, if you wouldn't mind lining up in front of the microphone while I ask one more. I mean, kind of to your point, the other thing we really worked on was making sure there was both haptic feedback as well as an audio cue. So people started to learn exactly how far back they had to go. Was there anything else like that in the game where you had to kind of use user reinforcement that you wouldn't normally do in a shooter?
didn't quite understood the question.
Oh, was there anything else where normally maybe a HUD would display information and say, oh, you've gone far enough back? Or
we,
something like
we
that?
have something like when you reach into to your holster zone, we have like a haptic feedback,
Right.
and we have the sound. Sound confirmation that, okay, you reached out, so you can grab. And the same as you when you're trying to put the weapons back to the holsters, we have the same. Just
Yeah. Did you guys find any of that in terms of different ways of communicating kind of traditional shooter information to users?
We tried the haptic thing on, and we still have it
Hips.
on the hips, and so it'll do a little when you state change in. I tried something a little more analog, where the closer you would get to the holster, the more, so you could kind of get like a sense of touchiness or something. But when people were just swinging their arms by their hips, it'd be it was ridiculous. So finding the right balance of accidentally finding yourself in that state, because we're super generous with the holster grabs, because when you've thrown a robot up into the air and it's come like this, you know, if you make a grab down here and nothing comes up, there's nothing worse than going and having nothing in
Not
your
having
hand.
a
It's
gun,
just
yeah.
the worst.
Yeah, I think we've dealt with you know, some side effects of that of being very generous with your holsters. Is we have a holster right here that you can attach your flashlight to. So you know, it's a really interesting balance of when a monster comes up and you're like, okay, I need my gun now, and you're clicking your flashlight at them. So, but you know, things that we have to communicate. You know, when people are in range to grab something. You know, that's something, you know, in a first-person shooter, typically, like you'd have your crosshair on something, it changes color, or the crosshair changes or something. And in VR, you know, we always find that people, they're not really, well, not always, but they're not really, they think they're close enough to the thing to grab it, but they're not. So we had to just get really generous with that. Like, if you're if it's there and it's sort of in this kind of a cone and you're trying to grab it, you just get it.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys do a great job of that with highlighting the object in yellow as well as showing a circle that expands when you can grab something. So, all right, why don't we take questions from the audience?
Thanks. I was actually wondering how the teleportation works in Robot Recall. Is it? I know you mentioned something that was like an arc, but I haven't seen enough footage to.
We do the arc, where it's kind of much like the lab. We stole it straight out of there too. But at the end of it, you kind of see a representation of where you're going to be, and you see your head and hand positions. And if you rotate the stick, it'll you see kind of it's got like a directional arrow, and so you'll orient the way that you're going to be when you come out of the teleport. And I think you guys are doing exactly the same thing.
Teleporting by pressing up on the thumbstick?
If you push on the teleport stick at all, and then the way that we determine that you've executed one is when you've actually removed your thumb from the what do you call that?
The analog stick.
No, actually, like the touch
Oh,
sensor.
the actual, the capacitive.
Capacitive touch, yeah. So when you've removed your thumb off the cap touch, so it's actually more than just releasing, because we found people would accidentally center out, and it would pull them out of the teleport. So we actually ask people to remove their thumb. People don't think about it that well, though, so it works really well.
You mentioned at some point you had a dynamic where you would have people move their wrists.
Yeah, you would. So, for example, you would just actually, and at the time, any button on the face was the teleport button. I'm curious if anyone uses A and B differently, because I haven't seen any games do that yet. But you just press any button like that, and then you would roll. And so it would start forward, and then it would go whoop. And so, but the confusing part about it was that your roll was the yaw. And so you have to kind of think on a multi-axis mapping thing, which was just a little bit too much for your average person, I think.
So you would still point in the direction you wanted
Yeah,
to teleport,
and then you would, like,
but then
do
to
this.
determine rotation, it was based on how you rotated your
Yeah,
wrist.
exactly.
Interesting.
Hi, I'm Bart Kok from the Virtual Dutchman, and I only have some excessive playtime in Bullet Train. But from what I get from you guys, all your teleportations or solutions are for cooperative and single-player play. And the actual million-dollar question is, how do you solve locomotion in competitive play? In my opinion, have you tried figuring out something like mixing third-person and first-person? So when you lower your touch controllers, you're like standing at ease, and you can just move around in third person. So all the locomotion, all the animations, jumping, all the weird stuff you don't want in first person, you can do like with the controller while
I've
standing.
seen somebody doing that. Who's doing that? There's someone else where I think you either teleport there and you see your body move to it, and then you go to that place, or you move your ghost avatar and then you
Just
teleport.
one project on GRBR, but I quite don't remember how it's called. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw something like that as well. I haven't tried it either, but it seems kind of interesting.
Yeah, but then that's a ghost, and you see like from a third person, or you're just sticking behind it, and at the right moment you can just, you see the enemies, and you can just pull out your guns, teleport first person, and do your thing. I mean that.
You should prototype it. Sounds like fun.
Okay.
You have a hit on your hands.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about that? Doing multiplayer games, at least with the Locomotion you guys have. I know some of you have kind of thought about it.
We just avoided the whole thing.
Just you must have thought about it at some point, though.
I mean, we've thought about it. We've also kind of avoided that because we don't have competitive shooting in our game. But one of the ways that we've had to address some of that even with our AI is some kind of cooldown on the teleporting. Because if you can just constantly teleport around, it's like you can just cheese the AI, just circle the level and get around them perpetually. So get away from them perpetually. So what we do is, however far you teleport, you have a cooldown that is that amount. So if you teleport, very far, it's a longer cooldown. You teleport very short, it's a shorter cooldown. And then the length that you can teleport extends as the cooldown extends. Initially, we just had it where you teleport. I can't teleport again until the cooldown is down, and that was just super frustrating for players. They're like, "Why can't I move? Why can't I move?" But that could kind of solve some of the problems in multiplayer as well. If you teleport and you've got this cooldown and you can't move as far again, you can still shoot at the person. But honestly, I've seen none of us have mentioned this, but why we do teleporting. And I've seen so many VR games still popping up where the way they solve it is they don't. And the guys just run around with a gamepad or ASDW, and you play for 10 minutes and you just want to throw up. So don't be that guy. If anyone has ever gotten food poisoning, did you want to eat that food again? Don't be that developer that makes somebody sick in VR and they don't want to touch VR again, because we all want people to keep playing VR.
Mm-hmm. For us, it's a little different because we don't really have an disembodied avatar, so like you're in the bot. So we talked about multiplayer things we could do, because you could basically my bots versus your bots. I'm jumping around, or we have a set of bots that are there or moving in on each other, and you can kind of jump around and fight each other. I think it would work out pretty cool. But again, it's a different kind of thing. I understand your question is more of from the first person perspective of like, I don't know, for a game I think it worked pretty well, but I think that is going to be an issue that we're going to have to solve in some way.
I mean, the thing is, and Dead and Buried actually does this does the versus each other combat pretty well. But the thing is, you have to stop moving at some point to shoot at your enemy. Mm-hmm. So at some point, you're like, okay, I'm not teleporting anymore. I'm going to shoot at you. Well, when you do that, the enemy has the same opportunity to shoot at you, and then you can move around your local space. You can duck, you can crouch, you can move, left and right a little bit. And so that kind of works. As long as you both have similar capabilities, competitive multiplayer still kind of works.
And real quick, I'm actually going to disagree with you, John. I think anyone that's experimenting with Locomotion in VR, don't be afraid to try something like WASD. Because just because that movement is uncomfortable doesn't mean there aren't other things you can do with visual effects, whether it's some form of tunneling that other people have talked about, that can actually make that more comfortable so you can do traditional motion. I wouldn't say it's solved yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm absolutely up with try something, but try something different.
Right.
Tunneling. There's some really interesting research coming out of some colleges where they're restricting the peripheral vision because most of our motion sickness comes from our peripheral vision.
Right.
Try that. Just don't do the thing where you ship your game and don't solve it. Like, we're just not going to do anything, and we're just going to have you move just like it's Call of Duty.
Yep.
Don't do that.
Yeah. I'm totally with you there.
Hi. So you guys briefly talked about the problems that you experience with guns that are two-handed or long guns. I was kind of curious on all of your opinions about in the future there are going to be peripherals, gun peripherals, and rifles and things like that. How those will fit in, how you guys might use them, and what you guys think about it.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I mean, like the Sony one, they have their totally not a gun thing, and I think that's their biggest problem is when we were doing it, is that you have no rigidity between the two hands. And if you can solve that, I mean, it's a done deal. It's pretty easy. I don't know.
Well, they're kind of doing that with the Guitar Hero, or I'm sorry, Rock Band. It's that whole thing where they have the peripheral that's attached on there, and they have these attachment points. I mean, obviously what Sony's doing. Because when you have that, and you're feeling it, it's that another step of immersion that we're gonna. I think that's kind of the way that this is all gonna go.
Yeah, I'm kind of dreaming about that too, because when you have that study, like real feeling weapon, you can like access like new genres. You can do a sniper game. You can do like I don't know, an RPG combat. You can do whatever you want, because yeah, I'm kind of dreaming of it. Do it, please.
Yeah, I'm really excited for those kind of peripherals. The only thing that I worry about is, even looking at the Sony peripheral, is you're sort of limited to everything being that size and shape. So if you want to have, like watching some of those games we played, is you can't have like the 2 pistols in each hand. But if there's any hardware developers out there, my idea would be almost something that you can split apart that's magnetic, so that you can use it in 2 hands and then put them back together to use it as a,
Yes, that would be great.
So somebody try to make a really cool thing like that. I won't charge you any royalties.
So just for a little context, my company actually does make VR gun controllers, so we'll keep that in mind.
All right.
Cool.
Do the thing. We'll use it.
Hi, Michael. I'm doing research in, scientific research on vection and locomotion in VR. And I wanted to know, if you had more insights on what you tried and didn't try, because so first thing I tried was the rip motion. I imagine you've seen. So you put, you're just gonna jump a bit to move around. Most of the people didn't like it. It induced motion sickness, mostly because the headset itself moves. We do have other systems that we're going to publish online in the VR experiments, but I wanted to know yourself, if there is one system that so far you liked.
Not really, but I tried a bunch of things. Granted, what gives me hope is that I tried a bunch of things and other people tried the same things and they actually succeeded. Like one of my first, it was maybe my 6th, 7th prototype, something like that, was I had a bird simulator. We were flying around as a bird. And the way I controlled it was, I was using roll like this. And you would roll and it would tilt like this. And then you would kind of press the flap button and you'd get a bit more speed and you could kind of do this. And it just made me horrifically nauseated. It was awful.
Speaking about flying, have you tried we have Getnamo from the Unreal Engine community around here, and he made a simulator, a flapping simulator.
Oh, cool. No, I haven't tried that.
You haven't tried?
But then Ubisoft have, what is it?
Eagle Flight.
Eagle Flight, yeah. And they've, apparently it's quite successful. They have their vection reduction. They're measuring the motion vectors on the screen and all that stuff. And some of our guys internally have been doing a little playing around with that as well, apparently to quite a good success. But yeah, I mean, the fact that other people have tried it and succeeded where I completely dismissed it early on is promising, at least. So.
Yeah, I will say Eagle Flight, we do have, I think, out in the gamepad area. I encourage everyone to try it because, yeah, it's a very high motion game, and yet it is supremely comfortable. It's really impressive. So if you haven't, I encourage you to try that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, hey guys. So I was going to bring up Locomotion again. So I really like traditional Locomotion. I don't want to start a political debate or anything, but I see these beautiful worlds you guys are making, these beautiful games, and I just want to go. I want to move around. I don't want to teleport. I just want to walk over there and shoot at somebody, and I want that, John Woo film. But I can't get it because I'm teleporting around. Is there even an internal debate in your companies about it, or is it straight up like, teleportation is the answer?
I think, if you're in there and you're prototyping this new tell, it comes back to that whole thing of you just feel terrible most of the time. I mean, you just, it doesn't feel right to, though you want to have that second thumbstick that moves you around, it just feels horrible. I mean, if you're looking at something, you're moving towards it, yeah, you might feel okay. You'll still, some people are really sensitive and it won't work for them. But if you ever move forward and you look to the side or something like that, you're done. It feels terrible. And I wish there was a solution. I totally love it. If we had it, we'd be all making first-person shooter games and it'd be just amazing. But right now, we don't know what it is. And that's what's so awesome about this is like, it's been, 2 years now. And you can kind of see all the things that we're learning. We're all kind of coming to similar conclusions, which is really cool. Because we all want that. We want that game where we can just kind of just move forward and it feels great. And whether it's going to be one of those things where I want to make
a Spider-Man simulator. Like that is my dream game, and I hate my body. I just despise it that it makes that I'm going to be incapable of doing that game.
Well, and maybe that's it. It's like as long as you're looking there and moving, there might be something to that. There was this one game, I forget the name of it, but it had that where you could the thumbsticks or not thumbsticks. graphics. The triggers were like you'd reach out like this thing and grab and pull you through. Yeah.
Well,
Well, it wasn't the climb. It was
Windlands
yeah.
is the Spider-Man style game where
Yeah.
you do shoot out your hands.
Right,
basically.
and yeah, I felt terrible after playing it, but it's one of those things where it's really cool, and I want a game like that. And I was kind of like, it's like that level of nausea that you can accept to play this, and maybe even time we'll get used to this stuff. Who knows how this is really going to affect our brains? So
Yeah, I have I can agree with everything that he said. We had, many lunches were sacrificed on the altar of Locomotion. And, after a while, we did teleporting and it just worked. And we're like, you know what? We're not going to make ourselves sick anymore. But, we're interested. I personally, we're not really debating about it anymore, but I personally follow, like, any of the research I can see online that people are trying different things, and if something really compelling comes up, I'll try it. In my head, once again, I'm not an engineer, but in my head, I hope that there's some magic haptic thing that they can do with headsets in the future that just fools the hairs on your inner ear to think that you're moving. But I'll let you guys create that.
Have you heard about the research where you can apply? They call it your vestibular system. They apply low voltage impulses to it. And so if you close your eyes, they tell people to walk.
That sounds really safe.
Yeah, it's super safe, super safe. No one has died this week from it.
Yeah.
But they will ask them to walk straight ahead, and they'll apply an impulse to the right side, and they'll start just steering. And they think they're walking straight ahead, but they're not. And so, I mean, if you could, so if you presumably, if you could tune that to some kind of imperceivable level, one could, in the future, maybe fool your entire brain into thinking you were moving.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add is that you guys have all done amazing work, but really we're still just in the first generation of games that are coming out. These are really the first generation of shooters, both with a gamepad and with touch. And so I think what you'll see with the second, third, fourth generation is people will start iterating and building on what they learned from some of these other games. In my unique position within Oculus, I have the opportunity to see a wide variety of games that are in development, and I can say there are absolutely games that are working on solving that. And so I would say it's definitely not settled by any means that teleportation is the way you have to go.
Okay, yeah, I totally shocked myself to walk through your guys' game, but thanks.
Hello. From my personal experience, I feel like the nausea comes from too much freedom within a game. So, for instance, for now, shooting games, for not even first person, but like Eve Valkyrie, it's in a spaceship and you're going one direction where you're looking at, and in a sense, it is in a constant frame. So, what I was thinking about is if you're in a moving vehicle, for instance, a bike, and if you were able to have, I guess, a constant panel frame where you can look to the side and look behind you, or look to the side and shoot, have you guys tried that, and does that cause a lot of nausea? Okay.
My very first prototype, in fact, was a mech simulator. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, walking down the street, yeah, that's fine. It's cool, Instead of bobbing your head, and I kind of bobbed some of the exterior, and your exterior kind of stayed pretty still. And then the second you start yawing around that corner, that first corner, it's just like, okay, all right, we made the turn, all right. So it's, even look, Eve Valkyrie, really cool game. I lost about 3 minutes. It's just, I'm super sensitive. And there are plenty of people who just don't care. So I'm the guy ruining it for everybody. I'm like, you guys who want to walk around the environment, like, it probably, it probably works for you, but I'm that guy. So you can hate me if you like.
Yeah, for us it was interesting. We had originally from the beginning it was, you can't move at all, can't move at all, don't move at all. Okay, maybe you can be on a train. Or maybe you could be on this thing. We're like, okay, that's cool. So we tried that out, and some people are like super sensitive to that. It might affect them just a little bit, but we found that if we make we keep on calling it the grounding element, that thing large enough where you feel like there's something moving, further off in space. Like I'm on a big vehicle, and it doesn't feel as bad as if you're on a small thing moving really quickly. So yeah, we had some of that, and we kind of got braver as we got into near the end of the project of what we were doing with it. But ultimately, it always came down to like. Well, how does it make him feel or her feel? You want to make sure that it's, it's very comfortable. At least that was one of our big pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. My understanding is y'all are making sort of like a front-facing kind of touch games because of the current limitations of the Oculus hardware. But I was wondering, like, if you had some, like, action that was happening behind you, if you guys ever experimented with, like, 180 flipping the camera or anything like that to handle that situation.
So we deal with that a lot in Killing Floor Incursion. I know a lot of people design their shooter games for touch that they only come from the front, but being ours was a horror game, we absolutely wanted monsters coming up behind you. And the way we solve that is snap turning. Your left thumbstick will snap turn you in like 45-degree increments. So if something comes up behind you, you just snap turn around. We also added a system we call guardrails. That sort of guides you. Like if you rotate too far, a little wall will come up behind you with a message like, "Hey, rotate back around," and you see a sensor that fades out. So it kind of gently gets you back facing towards the camera. But the snap turning works really, really well.
We're gonna have to steal that stuff right off you. Just gotta look at it and steal it, all of it.
Is there a reason why you went 45 instead of 90, or?
Yeah, because it happens instantly. You can get 180 degrees and like I mean just like that. But the monster might be here, so we didn't want to take you too far.
We've been fighting the people turning around and being able to figure out how to get them back again. So yeah, I'm just gonna
guardrails.
Yeah, okay, we'll give it a shot.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then we're running out of time, so this will be the last question.
Okay, I'm with the University of California in San Diego, and we've been using these virtual reality caves for over a decade now. And our standard locomotion method is to just move around, like with a, not with the keyboard, but we use a 3D controller for that. And I've done demos to probably well over 1,000 people, and there's been only like maybe 1 or 2 who complained about getting sick. Now these caves are a bunch of screens that are around you at about a 5-foot distance from you. But we have one system that's completely surrounding you, so even the peripheral vision is completely filled with computer images, but you can see the floor and you can see yourself. So I don't know what it is about the difference between HMDs and that, which is actually interesting to research. But I wanted to give that sort of as a signal of hope that in the future we're going to be able to find out what it is that makes HMDs so nauseating when you move around freely. Because I love that method of moving around, and it works great in these caves. It really isn't a problem. So I don't think there's a fundamental issue with VR. I think it just needs to, so either these visual cues that the gentleman 2 questions ahead of me mentioned, I think that those are worth pursuing more, but also maybe tracking just needs to be a little bit faster in order to make that work. But I think that problem's gonna get solved, I'm fairly certain. I just don't know if we're gonna be able to solve it with the current generation.
Yeah, we have, at Epic Games, we have one of our UX experts. He did his PhD, I think, in simulation sickness, not specifically in VR. I think the focus was on driving simulators and stuff like that. The percentage of people who get sick is something along for them was something like, was it 6% or somewhere? I don't remember. It wasn't super high, but it definitely wasn't a full surround thing. You'd have window panels that you would get the driving through, and he did a really good talk. I think the last GDC. His name's Ben, yeah. So apparently,
that's a big difference. They don't use head tracking in these simulators, whereas in the caves we use head tracking.
Right.
That usually solves the problem for people. And with the HMDs, we have built-in head tracking.
Right.
So that should be much better than driving simulators.
One of the things I've found just in seeing a variety of different experiences is it oftentimes depends on what's being rendered on screen and how detailed your environments are. If you have significant high density pixel flow going by your eyes, that's often one of the things that contributes the most. So if you're looking at a flat horizon or very flat shaded environments, it actually tends to be much more comfortable doing movement without the user initiating it with their head or something like that than really highly detailed, say, corridors or something where you're constantly looking at different versions of elevation. So I think it depends also on what you're looking at. So while that research sounds incredibly encouraging, my guess is it also depends on kind of what you guys are building in the shooter.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Cool.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I want to thank our panelists. You guys have been fantastic. Please let them hear it. Thank you guys.